Rabbi Mordechai here. We're continuing the series on basically like we're starting a spiritual movement, right? We're starting a spiritual movement, for all of, all people, people that, want to see the world in a new way, people who want to achieve a higher level of fulfillment, a higher level of consciousness, a high level of happiness in this lifetime. This movement is designed specifically for you. And what is the basis of this movement? The movement isn't about being a follower. The movement isn't about, following me or following some other person. Rather, it's taking in the information that allows you to rearrange your perception of life. And that perception of life is based around your uniqueness. That's why you can't have some grand teacher that leads you the way. Rather, it's your relationship with the creator. But the basis of this movement, the basis of the idea itself, is the dynamic that I have a soul and my soul has needs, whether it's conscious awareness or the light, the connection that the consciousness awareness gives me to the creator, right? And I live in a reality, and we've been sold a reality in Western society, and it's not Western society's fault. God designed the world this way for us to fight and toil and to go through, to struggle and strife and climb up our own personal mountain of salvation, in essence, to be able to connect to the one and only creator of the universe. And what's stopping us from doing that is idol worship, right? We are worshiping idols. We're worshiping that politicians can save our lives. We're worshiping that if we make a certain amount of money, you are going to be fulfilled. We're worshiping, if I have a certain status, I'm going to have a happier life. If I have material items, I'm going to have a happy life. But in the essence, when we're totally honest with ourselves and we look at society and we look at life, we'll see the end product of everything that we want is the life force of the creator. That's all we want. And it's not our conscious mind that wants the life force of the creator, it's our soul, right? And the more in touch we are to the fact that we have a soul, the more we're going to be able to take advantage of this segmented time that we call life that God gave us to correct our soul, to achieve a higher level of connection to God in the afterlife, right? And even in this life as well, right? You don't have to die for happiness, but it's a perpetual process of greatness. So in last class, what we talked about was this idea of how God created the world and how he had these souls that were with him, that he wanted to reveal his benevolence, and he created these souls, and these souls were receiving the life force of the creator. And these souls that were receiving the life force of the creator ultimately wanted to be like the creator, and they just didn't want to receive for themselves alone. They wanted to express the benevolence they were receiving from God. And so they restricted an aspect of their ability to receive from the creator, and thus created a void between God and those living souls. And that void became the impure reality that we live in today, right? This is where we live in today. We live in that world which is based on this original desire we had to become like the creator, to be sharers, to be givers, to be merciful, all the different attributes of the creator. We wanted to express that. So how did we do that? God gave us the tools, which was the 7 days of creation, right? So the 7 days of creation created the playing ground, right, for us to ultimately express our free will. So the world that we live in has to be deceiving. It has to convince us that this is the way to go, but it has to be opposite. It has to be opposite of what the creator, planned for us, right? That's what this is about, right? So the goal of this movement is to reawaken that consciousness that we had before we came into this world, before the world was created, which was, I want to be like the creator. I want to transform myself. I want to become great. So in this class, we're going to discuss this impure world that was created. And when we say impure, it's not to say like, other people, other religions, want to make everything bad and sinful. We're not saying that. When we say impure, purity is the total clarity of what is the source of my fulfillment. Impure is where it's not clear, and maybe even deceitful, right? And giving us the wrong information, right? The world is giving us the wrong GPS to the life force of the creator, right? So we want the right GPS, right? And the right GPS is the system of knowing that we're physically seeing the Torah. The Torah is around us everywhere everything that we do is the Torah. So I want to start with a small story. Yeah, it's a famous story. I like it. I say it a lot, but it's good to remind ourselves going into this. So there was a story about a great king, right? It's always a great king. And he became very ill, and all of his different ministers and doctors couldn't heal him. And so he put out a statement and says, anyone who could come and heal me, I will give them the whole treasure of the kingdom, right? And you got right, this is a massive, massive treasure. You're talking about like football stadiums is full of gold and crowns and coins and rubies and treasure chests and fine garments and all types of things you can't imagine. This is what the treasure. So there's one guy who was in the town, and he was a Jew. He was a Jewish guy, and he knew that there were certain things that perhaps the king wasn't doing in his recovery process, and things that he, had wisdom of the Torah. So he goes and he starts working with the king, and the king sees an immediate improvement. Right? He's not healed yet, but immediate improvement. So as time goes on, he comes day after day, and every day the king gets a little better. And when the king's almost at like a 50%, remember, he's on his deathbed. When he was at 50%, he started to think to himself that greed starts to set in. And he started to say, wow, man, am I really going to give this guy the whole treasure of the kingdom? I mean, I was on my deathbed, I was crying for help, but, now that I'm getting better, maybe I don't want to give it to him so much. But I made a promise and I made it public, so I can't take it back. So what does he do? He says, I'm going to figure out a way to convince this guy who's healing me, right? The guy who's healing me, the Jew who's healing me, that I want to find a way to manipulate the situation where he doesn't take the whole treasure chest, right? So I say to him, so what does the king do? The king calls him and says, hey, I'm almost healed. You did an amazing job. I want you to go on this particular day, and you're going to have 24 hours to take as much gold as you have. And the guy's like, wait, I thought I'd just get the whole thing. He's like, no, I didn't mean it that way. You have 24 hours to go into the royal treasure, and you're gonna have, guards with you and all types of people, and whatever you want, you could take it, but you only have 24 hours to do it. And he's like, okay, fine. I mean, what are you supposed to do? It's the king. He's just, regular person, simple kid. And so he's like, okay, that wasn't the deal. Okay, fine. Still better than nothing, right? And so the king does even more research, and he finds out everything about this guy's life, what he likes to do, how he wakes up, everything. And so what does the king find out? That he was a humongous lover of music. He loved music, like that was his whole thing. And not only did he find that he loved music, he found out what were his favorite artists, right? Like Isha, Rebo, Nassim Black, no, I'm joking. But just saying, during this time, it was like that same type of idea, right? So how does it go? So the king finds out who his favorite artists are, and what does he do? He gathers them all. He pays all of them money to come on this day in the king's treasure room, right, and give a concert, right? And this is like a surprise. And then the king calls the Jewish guy who was the healer, and he says, hey, just so you know, on the day, I have a special surprise for you, and it's a gift directly from me. And he's like, wow, what is it? He said, you're going to find out when you get there. So here's the big day of he's going to do it. It's like Thursday night, right? He goes in there, right? The Jewish days start in the nighttime. And so he goes in the night, Thursday night. And so he has this time from Thursday night all the way to Shkia, which is, right before Shabbos, right? So he has this amount of time to get as much as he can. And then, that will be his, a gift from the kingdom, right? And also a special surprise, which he doesn't know, which is this whole group of musicians that he loves. And they're going to be playing for the whole day, right? So he comes in, he has all of this, cargo boxes to take as much jewelry goes. He has the security guards there, whatever. So he walks in, and what does he see? He sees this amazing buffet of food, right? This amazing buffet of food. And it has all of his favorite foods on it, wines, everything, the whole thing, right? Then as he sees this, he walks up and have all these beautiful chairs setting, whatever, and all these beautiful people, that women there serving him, the whole thing. And the next thing you know, boom, his favorite artist comes out and starts singing, right? Because that was the secret. The king, the Jew didn't know that the king was bringing this this musician. He's like, whoa, this is my favorite musician. I can't believe it. So what does he do? He sits down, and while he's sitting down, they're serving him food, the whole thing. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. This is my dream. And then after the performance sings, he talks to him, whatever. And then as he's talking to his famous performers, his next big famous performer comes out. He comes out and he also, you know, is playing this, and he brings his favorite desserts, this, whatever. So bottom line is this is going on throughout the day, right? And so what's happening is that he's eating, he's getting full, he has, you know, all this entertainment, the whole thing. And then he starts to see the sun like starting to set a little bit. And he's like, whoa, it's almost time for Shabbos. And not only was it time for Shabbos, he hasn't collected any of the coins, any of the treasures, because he was so focused on the music and the food and all this and the beautiful people serving him, the ambience. And he was just like, oh my God. And he's like, wait, we gotta make moves. We gotta do this. My wife's gonna kill me if I come back with nothing. My kids, the whole thing, the whole town's counting on me, right? So what does he do? He hustles and he grabs some coins and some treasures and this, whatever, and he takes it and he leaves. Now, he goes back home and is writing time for Shabbat, and he has this, whatever. And his wife says, this is all you got? You only got these few boxes? You're there all day? He says, yeah, honey, I'm sorry. I got distracted. You know, they had all my favorite like musicians there, and they had all this food, and all these people were there, and I was hanging out with my favorite artist, the whole thing. And she's just like, but you were there to go and collect, you know, all the treasures to bring back to us. So you know, our kids, you know, we could be set, you know, forever, right? We could have everything. And he sat there and he's like, wow, I really missed that opportunity. So what's the moral of the story? Why am I telling the story? Because this is the relationship that our souls had in this world. We made a promise to Hashem that we were going to go and collect all the sparks of holiness, all the goodness in this world, and we were going to be like the Creator. But when we came into this world, when we came into the world, we forgot, right? It's like the baby who gets taught all the Torah, the Midrash says he taught all the Torah, and then he comes into his world and he forgets, right? So this world that we live in is designed in the same way that the king is interacting with the Jewish healer. That same way, this is how the world is designed. It's designed this way. We're supposed to forget. We're supposed to be distracted. We're supposed to see all this amazing stuff, these mountains, these trees, these billboards, these YouTubes and this and social media and politics and this debate and that debate and people that are not sneers and all these different things. They're all to distract us from the Ratzon of Hashem. And it's our Ratzon. We're connected to Hashem. We're an expression of God. We're an expression. Our neshamas are expressions of the Almighty, right? And so is everything else. But the neshama is the pure aspect of it. So we come in this world and we spend so much time with distractions, and we don't get all the fruits, all the perods, all the coins, all the kesef. But this is what I'm talking about, holiness. A person could be working all day. You know, you hear people say, you know, like you hear wealthy people say, quote unquote wealthy people, right? The people they tell us are wealthy, the people who have a lot of coins in their bank, right? These are the wealthy people we should aspire to be like. But you hear them talk about some guys make money, and their whole thing is making money. And they never spend it. They just want to make more money, right? So you could be distracted. You could be distracted doing what you think is good. You could think, wow, I'm working all the time, I'm productive, this whole thing. Who says that's the most important thing? Who says that's the most important thing? What the system I live in, because they want my productivity. They want me to work and earn and create and build and innovate and all these things, because you know what? Everything I create makes more purchases, makes more exchanges, which is what more tax dollars, and the state makes more money. And I'm not speaking against the state, but we have to be clear about what we're doing. And we can't live in a place of darkness, right? Where someone just tells us to do this and we just do it. What does the Torah say? So in that same way that the Jewish man who had a chance to collect a large amount of the treasures of his lifetime in that world, he missed out because he was distracted. And this king knew exactly how to distract them. So all of us have our unique thing, right? Maybe seeing other people and what they're not doing could be a distraction, right? Not taking advantage of the time that we have, the freedom that we have in our life. And social media could be a distraction. People's gossip could be a distraction. Oh, this political movement, we got to change this, reform, we're losing everything, we're losing the country. What is the Shemar? What is the Shemar? Maybe that's a distraction as well. So the point is to say, like, going forward in this adventure of the spiritual movement, this isn't about being a follower, right? Look at they even create this mechanism on social media. How many followers did you get? How many likes did you get? How many shares did you get? This is your definition of who you are. This is how you define yourself. Oh man, I put up a post, I got 300 likes. 300 likes, 1% of my whole fan base was into it, not even 1%, 0.5. Of all the people on my social media, they like this. Must mean it's good. Oh, I got new followers today. So therefore, I want people to follow me. This is a part of the impure system of distractions. We don't want people following us. We want people living their dream. We want people connecting to their uniqueness. Why do they need to follow me? They should be following themselves, following Hashem, right? Other people they could converse with, they could share, they can barter, they can exchange, of course, 100%. But that's not why we're here in this world. We're here in this world to express our uniqueness and to be connected on a consciousness level, not following each other. We need to be connected. We are all one soul. So with that being said, let's understand this impure reality. So the sages teach that when this occurrence happened, when the original light, which is the creator of the universe, wanted to share his benevolence and created these souls, and those souls restricted the creator's light, that created this impure reality. But this impure reality was a dynamic of how does it express itself? Because we have to understand there's the light force of the creator, what we emanate, what we come from, and then there's the world that we're into. And the goal of this world is to become closer to that original light, right? And what we want to stay away from is being far away from that original light. So how does that mechanism work? We hear about this idea of blessing. We hear about this idea of chet. These ideas of closeness, to connect, to tefillah. And we hear about chet, which is this disconnection. So what are we disconnecting from, and what are we becoming closer to? And how do we recognize that? So the sages designed this amazing system, which we refer to as parsufim, right? And so what is this idea of parsufim? Or pasuf, like spiritual form in essence, what it means. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so this parsufim, this system, right, is understood. The first one, there's many of them, right? And so it's important to know, because I was talking to a Christian gentleman, and he heard something I said online. He says, "Oh, that sounds similar to kind of like the Trinity." Actually, it wasn't. It was like actually a person who's Jewish who has really not the greatest thoughts. He said, "Oh, it's like when we talk about the parsufim and the light force of the creator and all these different ways the light spreads." He says, "Oh, it's like the Trinity. It's like the Trinity." And it's like, no, it's not like the Trinity. We're saying God, omnipresent, is beyond our logic. We don't understand the creator. We only understand the creator through its attributes, right? We learn about the connection. So the sages have different systems of names of God, which expresses attributes. We have different aspects of creation that also express characteristics of God. Everything that we see is expressing something in a higher world. So we're talking about these lights and the dissemination of light. We're not talking about the creator itself. We're talking about expressions of the creator. The problem that the people who believe in the Trinity have is that they're saying God himself, the entity that we have known is beyond our logic, has this multiplicity, which is asur. It's wrong, right? God is one. God is echad. It's one source. Everything emanates from that one source. Now, how the emanation functions, that's what we're talking about today, right? But God is only one entity. It's beyond. Now, we, at this lower level than the creator, can only grasp Hashem from his attributes, right? So it's important to note that, right? That we're talking about, not talking about the creator, right? We're not talking about Hashem Echad. We're talking about the emanations, just like when you hear about the 7 days of creation, right? That's not God. That's God expressing his attributes to us as mankind, right? So what the Torah is an expression of something that's beyond our logic, right? And even the understanding that we understand with the sages is still, it's still like it's a cliff note. It's the full totality we will understand when we have the Mashiach. Amen. And so the point is saying that going forward, we're trying to understand it. So the world, in this impure reality, how do we understand it? The first system, spiritual form that we understand is through the 10 spheros, right? The 10 spherot, which is basically the 10 emanations of God's light. Like God delivers light, right? God delivers light, and it expresses itself in 10 different dimensions as it makes its way ourselves to us, because the original light, we can't handle it, right? It's too bright, it's too big. It's like we have a metaphor for this. It's called the sun, right? So the sun, if I was right up to the sun, boom, you're finished. You can't even look at the sun too long, or it damages your entire ability to see, right? If you're out in the sun too long, depending on your skin complexion, you know what? You could develop serious diseases. You can die, right? That's how powerful the sun is. So in order for us to function with the sun, we have to have different things that we do. We may put on sunglasses, we may put on sunscreen. Basically, we have these layers, right? We may stay inside the house, we may turn on the air condition, right? But all these things are layers that separate us from this powerful light of the sun. So imagine if we took a space shuttle and we tried to make our way to the sun. We're done, zoop, evaporated, dust, right? Turn to salt, right? So the point is just saying, that was a joke, but the point is just saying that this idea of understanding the light of Hashem is understanding that the original light is so powerful. So in the same way that the sun disseminates, that light disseminates in stages, from the intensity of the power in the solar system to us physically on Earth, depending on where we're at in Earth, it disseminates a specific way. So we have 10 dimensions. We have 10 dimensions that the Torah says that this light is revealed from the endless world to this world here. Now they said that there's a hint to this, right? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, you know, the humongous Tana, Rabbi Akiva student, he says, when we read Bereshis bara Elohim ed hashemayim v'ha'aretz, he says that these are the levels, right? So the levels are Keter, Chokmah, Bina, and there's an idea of doubt, but we're not going to bring that in right now. Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Hesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, right? Malchut, right? These are the 10 dimensions, right? So he says that these 10 dimensions, and these are just basically 10, it's like 10 curtains, right? So you have Hashem's original light, and then you have these curtains who act as filaments, or you can call them sunglasses, right? So you have these different sunglasses that have the UV rays, right? And it's a different intensity for each of these different sunglasses, right? Now, the 10th is not necessarily a sunglass, it's actually a vessel that receives the light from those different emanations, right? So you have 9 emanations, and then you have this 10th, which receives it. It's like you know, like you see these supply chains, they have all these apples going through, and at the end of the supply chain, it goes into a big barrel, right? So it's like that idea. It's like this light disseminates into this world from the endless world. We're not saying the sun. I just use the sun as a metaphor. We're saying from the endless world, beyond the solar systems, beyond the galaxies, there's a light that emanates from that world all the way in. And that light is what makes everything's in business, right? You come in the house, you turn on the light switch, everything comes on, right? Electricity, this, the whole thing, right? Or say when a person's power goes out in their house, right? The power goes out, Okay, then it comes back on, boom, everything's lit up, right? So this original light that's in an endless world comes into this world and lights everything up. Not just the physical world, but all the different spiritual worlds that we can't even see with our five senses, right? We'll get more into that. So if you go to the first verse in Bereshit, it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashmayim v'ha'aretz. So this is what Rabbi Shimon says. He says, Bereshit represents Keter, right? Bara represents Chokmah. Elohim represents Bina. The Et represents Hesed. And then you have Shemaim represents Gevurah. And then you have Ve'et. And he says the Vav, Aleph, Tet are connected to what I was up to. Yeah. Hold on, let me show. Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Hesed, Gevurah. Yeah, and this is Tiferet, Netzach, and Hod. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I said wrong. It's okay. Tshuva. I said wrong. Okay, so it goes like this. Bereshit's Keter, Bara, Chokmah, Elohim is Bina, and then you have Et, which is Hesed and Gevurah. That's the Et, is the Hesed and Gevurah, the Aleph and the Tuf, Hesed and Gevurah, which some people even hold that the Aleph and Tet is also connection to the Aleph Bet, all the whole Hebrew 22 letters. And then you have Hashemayim, which is Tiferet, and then you have Ve'et, and Ve'et is Netzach, Hod, and Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, and in Haaretz is Malchut. So these are the first 10 dimensions. These 10 dimensions I'm saying are actually, you can look. I mean, obviously you need Rabbi Shimon's lenses and having a teacher like Rabbi Kiva to see it yourself, but this is how we know it, right? So that those 10 dimensions are expressed there. So how does these 10 dimensions work? So imagine you have a lamp, right? And that lamp is in your room, and the lamp, it's on, it's light, it lights up the whole room. Let's say you take a scarf, right? So you see women wear scarves, especially in the Middle East, scarves are a big deal, right? So you take one of those scarves and you put it on top of the lamp, right? So the light is there, right? But it's not as bright as it was before. And you put another curtain on it, right? You put another lamp. You put another scarf, right? 2 scarves, 3 scarves, 4 scarves, 5 scarves, 6 scarves, 7 scarves, 8 scarves, 9 scarves. So imagine you have a lamp with 9 scarves on top of it. It's going to be the light's not going to be so bright, right? It could even be dark. This is the world that we receive in the 10th level. We receive this idea of Malchut, right? And we'll go more into it, right? A lot of this stuff could be advanced, not advanced, whatever. But the point is just saying, this is where we're at now. This is how I'm giving it over, right? So hopefully you have enough of a background to appreciate what I'm saying. But the bottom line is like this. There are 10 dimensions. The first 9 are disseminations of light that are all concealed as they go lower, right? The original light, as we know, is very bright, but it goes down 9 dimensions. And the 10th dimension is expressed in the place of Malchut, where that light ultimately manifests and creates the world that we live in, right? So this is how we understand it, right? And so this world of these dimensions had to exist in order for us to have a mechanism to fight back or to restrict, to be able to remove these curtains or the perception of these curtains and connect ultimately to the ultimate source of light, which is the light force of Hashem. So part of that dissemination of light is not just about the relationship between the sun and the moon, it's everything around us, right? It's the trees, it's the stars, it's people, it's everything. Everything is connected to this original source of light, but as it manifests itself, it becomes more concealed, right? So for example, we talked about in the last class that there were 7 things the Midrashim say were created 3,000 years before Hashem says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashmayim v'ha'aretz. Before that was created, those 10 dimensions, there were 7 dynamics, which are also connected to this 10 we talked about. But it's not the class for that. But these 7 things that were created that were not physical, like the Torah, like Tshuva, Gan Eden, Gehinnom, Kisei Kavod, and Beis Hamikdash in the name of Mashiach. All these things were non-physical entities, right? They were non-physical entities in the endless world before the world was created, but as the world was created, they became physical. Now, why is it so significant in this class? Because the understanding of the non-physical becoming physical will allow us to understand how the process of the curtains work. Because I can deal with a person and meet a person on the street and say, oh, well, this person is white, or this person is black, or this person is Chinese, or this person is Asian, or this person is African, or this person's American, not African American. Okay, that too. But then you have Canada, you have all these things, right? People from all over the world. But the point is to say that that's only one dimension of that person, right? There's a biological part of this person, is how they're made up, you know, their cells, their chromosome, their heart, their arteries, their bones, all this. I can't see that with the eye, right? And then there's the element within even that, right? And then it goes even further all the way to the level of the soul, right? Because the soul is part of that original experience of light that came into this world that didn't have physicality. But then when it came into this world, it became physical and it expressed itself physical. When you see the tree, you should see the light force of the creator manifest into this concept called tree. The same thing with flowers, the same thing with animals, cats, dogs, everything. This is the physical manifestation of the light force of the creator, right? And so this is where we're at in our consciousness. And so the whole concept of understanding that these 10 dimensions exist, it gives us the intellectual freedom to fight past the ego. And the ego tells us, oh, I know what this is. Oh, I know what this is about. Oh, you know, I can see this on with my own eyes. Why should I listen to the creator? Why should I listen to the system? I should just live. I should just do my own thing. I know what I want. I know what's going to make me happy. I know what brings me pleasure. And the Torah is here to tell us, no, you do not. You only understand yourself on a physical level. And without the Torah and the wisdom of the sages, that's all you're ever going to experience for your entire life. And it's not pleasurable. That's why you have celebrities with billions of dollars that want to end their lives. There's people who live in affluent areas that only they can do with the money is drugs to feel something. To feel something. Because the whole mechanism of the world that we live in is only dealing with the physical. So this guy wants power. This guy wants to be the king of Africa. This guy wants to be president of the United States. This guy wants to do. All these things are based off of the perception that the physical experience can fulfill us alone. Because if it was about God, we would know that only humility, and I'm not talking about the humility that the secular poison system that we live in tells what humility is, which is you have no self-esteem, you have no pride, you're there, you put your head down, you don't want for nothing, you don't speak out. No, that's not humility, that's slavery. What we're saying is that what we're talking about in terms of humility is knowing that Hashem is right in front of me, is knowing that I'm living a life that I can access my total potential, or I could pretend it doesn't exist. That's the humility of knowing that I have the choice, I have the power, that I am not a slave to the system, I'm not a slave to my desires, I could accomplish anything. And I'm here to do exactly that. And I'll say even in a more concise way for people. The pain that I've experienced in my life is the pain I'm required to remove from the world, because this is a part of the process of the bread of shame. The pain I have experienced in my life is the pain I'm supposed to remove from the world. There's no perfect. There's no perfect. There's just my exact duty. And I tell you, leave you with this with another story, right? Because this is pre-Erev Shabbos. We still got to do some Shabbat shopping. You know, good things are happening, blessings are happening. So it's like this. The story the story that I want to tell is a story, it has to do with reincarnation, right? So the story is like this. Two guys go to Starbucks on a particular day. They don't know each other from Adam. And they go to Starbucks, and it just so happens that these two guys are standing right, one in front of the other. And so the one guy, the guy who's in front, let's say his name is Bob, and the guy behind him name is Fred, right? So Bob goes and he buys his coffee, and he goes, and then the lady gives him his coffee, and he goes over to add some extra stuff into it. As he's leaving, Fred also now has his coffee, and they run into each other, like just bump. Both are looking at their coffees. Boom, they run into each other. Coffee spills all over their pants, everything, right? Shoes on the ground. And for a minute, they both had this extreme level of anger. Like, what are you doing? Watch where you're going, this type of thing. But for some reason, they had this desire to say, you know what? It's okay. No problem. You all right? Yeah, I'm all right. And they had this moment of peace. So let me tell you a little bit about Bob's life. Bob was a humongous real estate guy. He made tons of money. He had children. He had a family, had a huge mansion, everything. Life, vacations, happy life. And Fred, his life wasn't that similar. Wasn't that similar. His life was, he had a lot of challenges, things that he was dealing with, whatever, economic challenges. Didn't have a family, he was divorced. But nevertheless, they both had this experience at this coffee house. Bob goes home after this experience. He said, no, I feel like just going home, taking a nap. Fred goes on and goes continue to look for a job, looking to, improve his life. When Bob goes home, he takes a nap, he never wakes up. He dies in his sleep peacefully. And Fred continues on, not knowing anything about Bob and his life or what he's about, and the fact that he died a few hours later after that encounter. The sages teach this idea about reincarnation and how these souls come back together and have different experiences for whatever reason. And let's use that same lens over here. Bob and Fred, in many lifetimes, were two big war generals, right, from different armies. And they fought over and over again, different lifetimes. Not even the same armies, not the same states, not the same countries, nothing. But they were just reincarnated, and they both became generals. And for some reason, they were opposed each other, and they hated, and they fought, and they killed, and they murdered, and they did all these things. And so God created a situation in this lifetime that they should meet each other and be in an awkward situation and have shalom and have peace. And in this moment of peace, for Bob specifically, this is the only reason why he came back into the world. He didn't come into the world to have this mansion and have a successful real estate life, to have beautiful kids. All those things were great benefits. Those were all brachot. Those were all things that helped him. But that real reason why he came to this world, just for that moment, to make shalom with Fred, a person he's been fighting for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And that was it. So why is that story important? Because when we live in a society that's telling us to mimic other people and to be like other people, and to have followers and this and all these different types of dynamics, then we're now subjugating our uniqueness and what we're here to correct individually to a collective. And we may think that the things that society is telling us that we need to do and the things that are important to us, are what we should do, right? But it's all a distraction, right? Just like the guy who has the ability to come and get the treasure is here. The treasure for us in this lifetime is to fulfill our correction. And we have all these distractions around. We have music, we have entertainment, we got social media, we got politics, we got gossip, we got drama, we have class, who's wearing what clothes, who has what bag, who's wearing what shoes. We have all these things, but we're only here to correct our soul. That's it. That's it. And once we do that, game over, next lifetime, if you even come back. And if we fail, the Torah tells us that we could come back as animals and lose the privilege of being a human being with the ability to correct ourselves through free will. We lose that level. We have to go through a whole nother cycle, which is a whole nother class on Kaf HaKela. It's a whole big thing. So in closing, we're going to dive more into this Tisra. We're going to understand what Keter is and Chokmah and this. And it's going to be a building process, a building process to connect to the creation of man, right? Which is us. Because we are made in the same way that the 10 dimensions that separate us from Hashem's pure light, each of our body parts reflect an aspect of this creation of dissemination. So Keter, Chokmah, Bina is there. Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, all this, all of our body parts are connected to the spiritual system. And that's why God tells us to treat our body a certain way, to treat our other people's bodies a certain way. We have certain laws of cleanliness and behavior and what not to use and how to use our body correctly, because our bodies directly correspond to the amount of light that we're able to receive, right? So it's a whole system. It's a big conversation, but it's important. Because if we don't expand our consciousness and we don't expand our way of thinking, we will be stuck in a reality that convinces us that we're nobodies, that convinces us that we're not important, that convinces us that we should negate our uniqueness and be a part of the collective. And once we join the collective, we're out. We're out. Bob came into this life for one conversation, one moment. His whole existence was determined on 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And he completed his correction. So a lot of times when we see people nifter, God forbid we ever know such a thing, we have to think about the life in the total picture and not just from our eyes, because life continues on, right? This is a part and it hurts and you're supposed to feel sadness, because it's a part of us that was connected to that experience that's gone. You know, we're mourning, right? We mourn for the Beis Hamikdash, right? So that aspect of lacking is part of the system, but it's not the totality. And so the bracha to everybody as we continue on is to say that let's remove these curtains at our own level. Not that we shouldn't have a healthy dissemination of light, but rather that we could use our free will, our bechira, to connect to the life force of Creator, to life force of the Creator, which is the whole purpose of this existence. And this goes to the original deal, the original contract that we made in the endless world. And we should only know good things and achieve our potential in the healthiest and the most merciful in a way of simcha.